So, welcome everyone to Carving a New Path. My name is Andrea Hylen. I am the host of this show. And so, before I begin introducing my guest and starting that conversation, I just want to say for anyone who hasn't listened to the show, this podcast began in 2020. And it really was in response to all the change that people were experiencing. And so I wanted to have conversations and guests come on the show to demonstrate what it looks like when life changes. You all of a sudden are going in a different direction because that happened for all of us in 2020 to some extent. And these are all people who listened to their inner voice and they birthed a new way of being in the world in all kinds of ways. So, an example of that is my guest today, Alecia Kane. Hi, Alecia.
Hi, Andrea.
I'm so happy that you are here today. And before we start our conversation, I just want to let the listeners know I have a few sentences to read about Alecia. She went from being a stressed out, depressed CPA and empty nester to following a faint, quiet voice from her heart, urging her just to go to Italy, where she received gifts from the goddesses that healed her relationship with time and her life. And now she is an astrologer and guide, supporting women to birth their highest self and create their next renaissance. Oh, doesn't that sound juicy? Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So, thank you. I love those words that you shared, Alecia, and I have followed you on that path. So, I just want to let everyone know also the title of the show is The Mythology of Time. And today is the first in a series of talks that we're going to have that really weave together life and astrology and this following the faint, quiet voice. I love that as I really resonate with that. So I feel like the starting point is Italy. And
Mhm.
I read your latest blog post today. And for the listeners, you can find that link to her blog post in the show page here, as well as her email address if you want more information. Um, but I was reading about that moment in 2015 where you well, I'll just turn it over to you to say what you want to, because the listeners can go to the blog and read about it. But what would you like to share about,
Hmm.
following your heart and that urge to go to Italy?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here, Andrea. And yeah, following my heart is something that I was very aware of at a not following my heart at a young age, and like really being aware of, oh, I didn't listen to that voice, and look where it led me. And I had a divorce and blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh, if I only listen to that voice. And then listening to the voice more and more, I'm like seeing how it led me to where I really wanted to go. And it was listening to the voice versus listening to the chatter in my head. And I'm a Gemini, so there's a lot of chatter in my head and ideas. And it was like, no, just focus into the heart. It's quieter. And it really takes a lot of courage and faith to follow that, because society says what's logical, what makes sense, what's linear, and following your heart will get you in trouble. And it might get you in trouble, and it might be the best trouble that you've ever gotten into. Talk about juicy trouble. So that
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
Italy. Italy was juicy trouble. It was 2015. I raised my sons. I was a CPA, certified public accountant, squeezing myself into a little box where you put the numbers. Literally, that was so not me, but it served me in this world because I ended up being a single mom and raising my two sons. They both went off to medical school. So I'm like, okay, I did
Mhm.
it. It was
Yeah.
hard, but I did it. And when I learned more about my astrology, I saw that I did have that capability, but it really wasn't my gift. I did it. 2015, my youngest son went off to medical school, and I felt like, what am I supposed to do now? What was my purpose? And I had done some connecting to my heart, knowing that this moment was going to come, but nothing really prepares you for it until it actually happens. And I got really depressed. And I felt like I served my purpose in this lifetime. What's there for me?
Yeah. Let's just pause for a moment because as you say that, it all of a sudden came into my mind some moments of my life where I felt like, okay, is this it or it's over? And I want the listener to think about that for themselves also, that think about a moment where yeah, I feel like that is part of this carving a new path where we're at a crossroads and we don't even know, we might not have even known we were going to come upon this crossroad. And all of a sudden it's like, well, I guess I'm done.
Yeah,
The thing that I was headed towards is now complete. And I don't really have a next idea of what it is, even for people who think they know what their next step is. Like they might think older than you are, but it might think retirement, for instance. And then it's like, oh, well, I've retired, but now what? You
right,
know,
right. Whenever
or
there's an ending,
yeah,
we don't realize that pretty soon there's another door opening.
yeah.
We're in that ending, and it's okay to be in that ending. And I encourage people to stay with that ending because there's so much joy and sorrow and celebration and like wonder, but it's part of completing. And when we follow the astrology and we really follow the moon phases, every 2 weeks is a full moon, which is about completion, and it's about, you can call that ending, but it's like when you get in this rhythm of it, and when there's a big ending, like there's a big segment, like your whole life up to this point is now over. It does,
Hmm.
it's a death in a way.
It
It's
is.
a death, and then there's a rebirth. It's Pluto.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's also Saturn return. I'm going through all of this.
Uh-huh.
And Saturn return is people think, oh no, they're afraid of it because they're afraid that people are going to die, like physically, in the physical. I might die. And I went through this, it's like it's a death, but there's also the rebirth. And we have to remember that it's coming. It comes in its time, and we just need to be still. And when you're still, then you can listen to the faint. Your heart will say, "Go to Italy," and you're like, "Shut up."
Right. Well, and I love the way that you wrote about it in the blog that it wasn't like you just all of a sudden woke up one morning like, I'm going to Italy, and then you got on a plane and you went. It's that you started to get these clues around Italy by being on Facebook and seeing a friend who you knew, right? Isn't that what
Yeah, yeah,
started to happen? And you didn't even embrace it at first, even though France had been big part of your life. So you had traveled, you'd lived in, let's just say, that area of the world and been drawn there before.
yeah.
Um,
I
but
visited
yeah.
Italy, but it wasn't like my dream to be in
Hmm.
Italy, and I was
Hmm.
certainly not in a financial situation at the time to just go and travel.
Hmm.
I was, no, I wasn't coming from a desire. It was
Yeah.
coming from well, eventually it was like a do or die thing.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
And I spent too much time on Facebook at the time because I was bored, I was depressed, I was at the end of a rope. So I'm going through, I'm scrolling through. There's these photos from this woman that I had met, and she bought a place in Italy, and there were a lot, like 100 photos, and a,
Hmm.
and a lot of comments, and I just kept scrolling on by. I did not. Next time I opened Facebook, there they were at the top again, because when comments come in, it goes to the top. At least it used to be that way. So finally, I'm like, okay, I'll look at them. And I could feel a stirring. I wasn't just looking at pictures. There was a message there, and I'm like, holy.
Right, right.
So I called this person. I'm like, wanted to get some information, and I literally could not sleep for 3 nights. And I went from depression of like this pain in my heart, like this felt like a boot on my heart. I couldn't really breathe, and to, oh my God, I couldn't sleep. I was like excited, couldn't
Yeah.
sleep, but like a fearful excitement, like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? This is crazy. Am I crazy? So I actually I had this therapist who was more of a spiritual guide, and she worked with energy and qigong. And I called her. I'm like, Carolyn, I'm about to do something. I think I'm going crazy. I don't know. Can you help me? And so she had me drive out to her home where she saw her clients in Ojai, California. Like spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Beautiful place.
I'm in her living room, and she says, stand in that corner and imagine you're in Italy. And then she saw my body energy. She saw how my posture was, how my breathing was. And then she told me, walk to the other side of the living room. And that side is California. That's like, if I were going to stay in California, that was another option, go to the desert where my parents were. And she just saw how my energy slumped. And so I wasn't aware of this, but she went, you have to just go and be curious. And that's all I needed. I was like, the permission for me to, like, okay, I had a ticket. Within 10 days, I arrived in Rome, and I was there. And that was magical.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know that that there's more to the story, and I also know that we were talking ahead of time about talking about time. So I'm wondering if you want to pivot to talk about time, knowing that we're going to have other conversations and you can share more about what happened after you landed in Rome.
Right.
Um,
Good idea.
yeah. And let's just see where the conversation goes today. But you want to talk a little bit about time, and
Yeah.
we'll leave everyone on the go to the blog and also come back for more conversations. And we may talk more about Italy today, but I feel like there was something that happened in Italy and with the astrology, your desire to study astrology. The word time came into it. So I'll just turn it over to you to share
Okay.
whatever you want to about that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a big topic, because I became aware. I did go to Italy, and I ended up getting a place there. And that's a big story, which I won't go into. But just being in Italy, I was in Italy for 6 months out of the year, and I've been doing that for 9 years. And after a couple years, I recognized that the time is different. The quality of time in Italy is so different than my 6 months in even the United States, in California, where from the time I was born, it's all about regiment, chronological time. Uh, you got to keep track of all your time. You don't want to waste your time. You want to spend your time wisely. It's all of these ways that we're taught to use time for the maximum good, which is really about making money and making sure that we're achieving our goals. And so we have these long lists of things to do, and we're trying to cram so much into a day that we really lose the benefit of other aspects of what time is. So I discovered, because in Italy, you're everything is run by the gods. I mean, the Roman gods and the Greek gods. And so there was Chronos and Kaios, two gods of time. Chronos meaning chronological, our time. And then there's chaos time, where in chaos time is where the moment is, it expands. It's like you're walking toward an appointment that you have at a certain time. You're supposed to meet somebody for a meeting at noon, but somebody comes into your path, and that person is more important because they're there with you, and you have this meeting, this connection, this conversation, and the meeting is already, you're already late for the meeting, but it doesn't matter because this connection is so rich and so important. And that's how life is in Italy. It's very fluid and it expands based on importance. Like, this is an important moment. I don't want to lose it. You know, it's like if your child is coming to you, you put the phone down and you pick the child up, even if you're in in a text with some client. And just that moment. It's so that's what I learned living in Italy. Those 6 months, I got to experience time on a whole different meaning.
Mhm.
And I corresponded it. I mean, it's corresponded with Saturn is very structured, and our chronological time. It's rigid, it's very linear, and it doesn't have room for the magic. And then there's the chronological time, then there's the chaos time, which is corresponded with the planet Uranus. Uranus is about disruption and expand and revolution and evolution and things that are not expected. Well, that's the kind of time that you experience, that I experienced when I was in Italy. And I was able to really heal from the linear time model that we've been indoctrinated with, I'll say. And now I am studying astrology because it's a way of bringing the chaos time, because of gods. The planets are gods, and they're intervening with our lives in ways that they used to in the ancient times. And when you're studying astrology, you're looking up to them and you're seeing how are they, where are they in the heavens, and how are they affecting us in our life. And if we could set our 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 chronological time in alignment with the energies and what's going on in the heavens, all that is working in a magical way and taking us to another moment that we wouldn't have gotten to if we were just living chronologically. Does that make sense?
It does totally. And so when so I'm just I'm trying to think of how to laser what I want to say for the listeners, because it's like Alecia and I've had many, many conversations about this and in different ways. And something that, as I was thinking about the topic this morning and just writing down notes that are now in the show page so that people can see the spellings of the different things that we're talking about, as well as there's an image at the beginning of the or for the show that shows these three different times. What you experienced in Italy, I actually experienced in California. And so I want to say that to the listener, because what I was thinking about this morning is how when the book Eat, Pray, Love came out, where the author writes the story of going to Italy, India, and Bali, there were a lot of people who read the books who felt like in order to create some of the experience that she had, they actually had to go to those three locations. And actually, you're not going to experience the same things that another person experiences exactly. You know what I mean? They weren't going to be able to recreate exactly what she experienced, even though they could have set up a research project. As you know, I'm always into the research project thing. But it's possible either where you are or by disrupting something in your life, by trying something new, going to a new place, having a new routine, that you can create some of these things with time. And so the Chronos with that's connected with Saturn, that I listened to one of the talks that you had shared with me last night. He called it ego time, that it's measured on clocks. This is this is the schedule. You get up, you go to, maybe you have a 9 to 5 job, you like everything is done within this time frame. And then that Keros connected with Uranus or Uranus, however, there's different pronunciations for that planet. I love that what did he call that time? Deep time. Oh, time with the soul.
Time with the soul.
And when we have this disruption and we let go of trying to control things in our lives and just let time take us where we are, that to me, I've experienced in what I call wandering time. Like I need wandering for my art. And some of wandering is actually just listening to my intuition and trusting that there are going to be synchronistic moments of connection, that everything is connected. It's just that we're not seeing it because we're trying to control or we're in a construct of time. And then the third one that you were talking about, the Aeon, AION, that's connected with Neptune, that is this unbounded time. The thing that really struck me about that one, because it is what you can experience in meditation, or it's when you experience, if you've ever experienced the everything and nothing at the same time, which we can really touch in those places. It's also watching nature. And you would say that there are certain things we can predict. For instance, certain times of the year that a tree might bloom with flowers, but it's not exact.
No.
And it is, it's much more about, yeah, and maybe that's the Kairos moments.
Yeah, it's like each leaf on a branch
Yeah,
plant is, you can identify that it comes from that type of plant, but they're all different. They all
yes,
have their own signature.
yes.
And
So
that
it's
signature is
it's
our
really
birth.
interesting. And I'll just say also that on that talk, and it's not that I have any more information on this, but it's kind of like a mind-blowing thought. He said that he had just learned, the guy who did the talk, and actually I'll put that in the show page too. Um, a day on Venus is longer than a year on Venus.
Yeah, that's
And I was
right.
like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, that's blowing my mind. All right. So that's actually the whole purpose of this conversation on time, is to think about time in a different way. Like what is time? Or where we think that time controls us in some way, or that we are controlling time.
It if
Yeah, I
we
could go down lots of rabbit holes around
yeah.
this because I actually had an experience in the past month where I had two weeks that I felt were just slower than molasses,
Hmm.
even though the days were full. I'm in the same household of activity that I for the past month. And those first 2 weeks were just like, oh my gosh, is it still Monday? It was like that kind of feeling, like it's still Monday. It feels like it's Wednesday. And the past 2 weeks have gone so fast that both my daughter, who's in her 30s, and I have been commenting on how, what? It's Saturday? No, it's Tuesday, isn't it? It's just like,
Yeah. Yeah, I
like
had that
the,
experience.
yeah, like what is going on with our connection with the planet? So I'm wondering if, like in the next, I don't know, 10 minutes of a conversation here. If you could talk a little bit about astrology, or maybe you want to go back, circle back to something I said about time, or you wanted to say about time, but I'm curious about, yeah, kind of what's going on with astrology or something that, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it open-ended. You share whatever you want to share.
Yeah, well, in astrology right now, the planets are really clustered together. And so if the planets are affecting the planets where the formation of the planets when you were born, you might really feel that energy strongly, or it might be opposed to your moon might be opposed to all those planets that are clustered together. But if you can imagine, like we've had Venus and Jupiter and the Sun and Uranus, these are big energies all clustered. So we're going to feel that energy. We may call it, oh, time has gone so fast.
Uh-huh.
The more you learn about astrology, you can actually identify what energy is affecting you. Jupiter, expansion, and just lots of opportunities coming your way. Maybe Uranus is coming in and you're feeling it as, my life is changing, and I don't, you think whether you do it consciously or not, it could happen, and you might not be conscious of it. The more conscious and aware of it, then we can use that energy to make plans, to set goals, and then we're really co-creating with the universe. And when you do not have to go to away, you do not. I went to Italy. I had that opportunity, but I'm bringing that what I learned back here now, and I'm helping women to find their heart. Take a breath and slow down, because we are taught to continually go faster and faster and faster, regardless of what the heavens are saying. Our chronological day requires us to do so much. If we can just take a breath and feel into our heart and tap into that chaos time. What energies are, what am I feeling? And what's going on in my life? And what questions can I ask my heart to give me an answer?
Mhm.
And so this is what I'm doing now in astro portal coaching, is really helping women to slow down, get out of that constant chronological time, bring that magic in, align with their heart, their deepest desires, and the energies in the sky to move life forward. And really, like I'm a midwife, I feel like I'm helping them birth I call it the next renaissance, which is where we're all going with this big Jupiter, Uranus, Pluto in Aquarius. We're dawning on a new age. Lots of change is coming, and it's coming because it's coming to us individually.
Mhm.
The more awareness I can help bring, the more positive changes we can create. Because even like when there's an ending, we feel it's over and we get down, but there's the new beginning. And if we can focus on that new beginning, we're just gonna keep going where in the direction that we want to be going into for the rest of our lives. It doesn't stop.
Yeah, something that just popped up for me as you were saying that with the endings is that something I discovered about 10 years ago was there's this cycle I go through where I will feel like I'm lost and I don't know where I'm going next. And one day I even was in California not knowing what my next step was. I was staying with my daughter and I was going to a yoga studio that I'd never been to. And I'm following the GPS on my phone. And all of a sudden, I'm like going in circles. I can't figure out where this yoga studio is. And I'm actually experiencing I was lost, but I also emotionally had been feeling like I'm lost. I don't know where I'm going next. All right. In this moment, I'm actually lost. I don't know where this yoga studio is. And then my phone died.
Mm.
And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to turn down here and see what happens. And I found this restaurant that said Plan B. And I was like, okay, I think I will go back to my daughter's apartment and start my day over, So I like found my way back there, ended up going to a coffee shop. And while I was on the coffee shop, someone sent me a Facebook message and said, hey, I have a friend who's going through a divorce. She travels a lot with her job. She has 4 dogs, and she's looking for someone to come live in the house and help her with the dogs. And you get rent free plus like $1,000 a month. And I was like, okay, there we go. So I've learned over time that when I feel lost, a new beginning will happen soon. And it might not happen within the next hour, but there will be something that happens that will take me to the next point. And I don't know, do you have a sense of what happens when in an ending is there something, some kind of song that starts playing in the environment or bells that go off?
It's funny because I have that same kind of an experience. It's like you're lost, you're emotionally lost,
Yeah.
in your life you're lost, and then physically you're lost. And
Yeah.
there's correlations on all these different levels. So I moved to a new town. I'm in Cincinnati. I'm driving around. My phone dies. I don't know how to get home. But I'm like, okay, let me tune into my instinctual navigational center. So I'm like, I'm not nervous about it. You could go, oh my God, and then you're making the channels stricter, constricting the
Mhm.
energy. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, well, let me go and see because I'll explore and find a new neighborhood. I made a turn, and just that morning, I had wanted to study astrology. I mean, I've been wanting to study astrology for a long time, but I've been just studying it, on my own. And I wanted a real course, but I didn't want to join this online school where there's just thousands of hundreds of people. I wanted something in person. I'm like, oh, that probably doesn't exist.
Mhm.
Well, I made a turn. I didn't know where I was. And I drove by a sign, Midwest School of Astrology. And I'm like, I drove by it. I'm like, wait a second. I had to stop. I had to back up. Did I read that right?
Mhm.
Well, one thing led to the other, and I ended up signing up that day.
Yeah.
But when you're aware of I'm lost and it's like you're okay with it, the energy, the manifestations, the energy will just sweep you to where you need to be. And it's when we get nervous and anxiety comes in, then we might miss those cues. You might have missed that plan B, or I might have missed that sign because I'm so worried about, oh no, I'm lost.
Yeah.
We're never lost. And then you can be found so quickly in exactly the path that you want to be in. So I don't know about where the astrology was at that moment, but I'm sure it was an alignment and I just wasn't aware of that piece of it. But imagine the more awareness we have, the more manifestation power we like in instant. Oh,
Mhm.
I want $1,000. Boom, there you go. You got a job with $1,000 a month and a direction just like that. And that's
Mhm.
how the universe works.
Yeah, and I want to say to the listener too that I know there have been moments in my life where I needed to sit down and have a good cry. And at that moment where I was lost with the yoga studio, I didn't feel it. At that point, I'd been through so many moments of feeling lost over, not continuous, but definitely points where there was an ending and a big beginning that was happening. But I do remember moments where I just needed to be a puddle on the floor, or on my bed, and just, I would say, have the good cry and then get up, move your body, and know that there is something that you can call it the universe, the planets, something has a sign for you. And so honor that also. Yeah.
Yeah.
In those moments, Alecia and I had been through enough of our crying on the floor. And in this moment, it was just follow the plan B, follow the instinct about how am I going to get home? Oh, there's the sign I needed, and stopping in that too. So
Yeah.
I want to share that.
I just want to say that all emotions have a purpose, and we need to just be aware and be immersed in whatever emotion that is there, not push it away. It's not about pushing away the sorrow or the depression. It's maybe just pulling over and feeling it and really breathing into it. So I
Yeah.
just want to make a point of that, because we're not saying that those emotions are bad and we don't want to be only in the good emotions. We have to go through that, and it sort of carves out a bigger capacity for us
Absolutely.
to hold. It's like there's light and there's dark, and they're equal. So the more, and I'm not saying that dark is bad either and light is good. It's just that the more we go into all of our emotions, even the sad emotions, the difficult emotions,
Yeah.
it helps us grow a capacity for really amazing creativity and joy and happiness and manifestation.
Hmm.
So thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that piece in, because part of my coaching is like, you are all welcome here. And if you're feeling something, let's go into that. And
Hmm.
you're witnessed. You're with somebody who can hold that with you. So thank you for
Yeah.
that.
And feeling sadness or feeling grief does expand your ability to feel more joy. It may seem like, how would that happen? It does. And um yeah. So I would just say, first of all, I want to thank the listeners for being here with us and for going on this adventure around time and following our hearts. And Alecia and I are going to have more conversations about this and get into some of the nuts and bolts of what has happened in Italy. I mean, because really anyway, there's so many things that we could talk about. And
I'm
so
looking
I
at
encourage.
chronological time now, and that does count too. So
I know. It's good. We all need structure. I was saying, actually, as a writer, I've realized that if I have some kind of structure for my writing to go into, like having a blog, a location is actually a structure. And so check out Alicia's blog. That's in the show page. If you want to find out more information about what she's doing, what she's up to, her email address is there. And anything that you want to say to kind of complete the show today.
Yeah, just that I'm not saying that chronological time is negative. We need to make appointments. We need to have agreements. And so we need to become aware of magical time, chaos time, of timelessness when we're in meditation. And we need to just learn to flow which time is the appropriate time to be aware of in this moment. I like to
Mm,
talk on that.
I love that. Thank you. Thanks, Alecia. And thank you to everyone who listened. And we'll see you another time.
Thanks,
Um,
Andrea.
okay. Bye bye now.